Welcome to Study with Dr. Anabia.
Before we start today's session, I want you to forget memorizing pathways for a moment. Today, we're not just talking about carbohydrates from a textbook perspective. We are understanding what actually happens inside the body when someone eats sugar, how glucose moves, how insulin responds, and why these biochemical events matter clinically. By the end of this video, you won't just know the pathway, you'll understand the metabolic consequences. Let's begin.
All right, welcome future doctors of physical therapy. Look, we're doing something a little different today. We're going to go way beyond the textbook to really connect the dots between all that biochemistry you're learning and what you'll actually be doing in the clinic. Because I promise you, understanding what's happening at the cellular level, it will completely change how you treat your patients. This quote right here, this pretty much nails a huge problem in our modern diet. Think about it. We're good, we've practiced restraint, maybe it's for Ramadan, maybe it's intermittent fasting, but then what happens? We follow it up with an absolute feast. We don't just, get back to even, we completely overload the system. And this one habit, this feast and famine cycle, has some seriously massive consequences for our metabolic health. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with this overload principle and see what it's actually doing to our bodies. Then, we're going to zoom way in, down to the microscopic level to talk about our cellular batteries. After that, we'll build up our vocabulary with the sugar family tree, get a new appreciation for plants, and then, and this is a big one, we're going to question a medical fact that every single one of you has been taught. It all leads to the single most important question you'll need to ask as a clinician. Okay, let's dive right in. The overload principle. What is actually happening inside our bodies when we swing from fasting to feasting in just a few hours? Well, it's not some smooth, easy transition. It's basically a metabolic traffic jam. Our entire system gets flooded with way more fuel than it can possibly handle all at once. And let's make this real. I'm talking about the everyday stuff, the fried samosas and pakoras, those super sugary, colorful cold drinks, and of course, the tea that's so sweet a spoon could literally stand up straight in it. For a lot of people, this isn't a special treat, it's the daily routine. And every single one of these things sends a tidal wave of sugar and fat into the bloodstream, leaving our bodies scrambling to figure out what to do with it all. So, where does all that fuel end up? Let's go to the cellular level. I want you to imagine that every single one of your cells has a little battery inside. Well, this problem of overload quickly becomes a problem of overcharging. And eventually you get to a state of, cellular resistance. Your own cells start to put their hands up and say, nope, no more. This laptop analogy is just perfect. Think about a patient's cell like your laptop battery. They eat and they flood their cells with glucose. That's like plugging the laptop in to charge. But if there's no physical activity to actually use that energy, it's like leaving it plugged in 24/7. What happens? The battery health degrades. The same thing happens in our bodies. The cell's glucose receptors just get burned out and they stop responding. That right there is insulin resistance. And for you as a PT, that means your patient's muscles can't get the fuel they need to heal, to get stronger, to respond to your therapy. Now, to really get this, and more importantly, to be able to talk to your future patients about it, you need the right language. So let's take a minute and build our foundation. We're going to look at the sugar family tree. This is your essential clinician's guide to carbohydrates. All right, let's keep this simple. Carbs basically come in three families. First, you've got the little guys, the monosaccharides. Think of them like single Lego bricks. Glucose is the famous one here. Next up, you've got oligosaccharides, which are just short chains of those Legos linked together, like everyday table sugar. And finally, you have the giants, polysaccharides. These are massive chains, like the starch you find in potatoes, or the fiber that's so vital for our health. Okay, let's zoom in on those oligosaccharides for a second, because they are everywhere. The big three you've absolutely got to know are sucrose, which is just table sugar, and it's made of one glucose stuck to one fructose. Then there's lactose, the sugar in milk. It's a baby's first ever carb, actually, and it's glucose plus galactose. And maltose is the simplest of all, just two glucose molecules holding hands. Now, why does any of this matter? Well, taste matters. A lot. If we set table sugar, or sucrose, as our benchmark at 100 on the sweetness scale, just look at fructose. It's off the charts at 173. This is precisely why high fructose corn syrup is in everything. The food industry loves it because it's super cheap and intensely sweet. So we've been talking about all these sugars, but where do they actually come from? The answer is simple. One place, the plant kingdom. And understanding this is so important because our reliance on plants goes way, way beyond just the food we eat. I mean, just look at how deep this connection really is. Plants give us the literal oxygen we need to breathe. They provide the energy in all our staple foods, rice, wheat, potatoes, you name it. They give us fiber for our metabolic health. And here's the kicker. Even our own DNA is built on a backbone of sugar, ribose, which comes from plants. They are, without a doubt, the foundation of our entire biology.
Okay, now that we've got that solid foundation, I want to shift gears and, well, I want to challenge you. Because as future scientist practitioners, your job is not just to memorize facts, it's to question them. So let's take a really critical look at one of the most common medical standards you will ever see.
You all know this number. You've had it drilled into your heads for exams. A normal fasting blood glucose level is anything under 100 milligrams per deciliter. It's treated like a universal truth, but is it? This is the question you have to start asking. Who decided? Who made the call that this one number is the gold standard for health for every single person on this planet, no matter their diet, their genetics, their lifestyle? You really think someone eating biryani in Karachi has the exact same metabolic profile as someone eating pasta in London or sushi in Tokyo? Of course not.
You see, the research that gave us this number comes almost exclusively from Western populations. So the core argument here is that this standard might be completely inappropriate for huge swaths of the global population. The source material we're looking at even raises the question of whether pharmaceutical interests have a hand in deciding where we draw that normal line, potentially creating millions of new patients overnight.
And what's really fascinating is that this standard hasn't always been 100. Not that long ago, the normal value we all learned in school was actually higher. So you've got to ask yourself a pretty simple question. Did human biology fundamentally change in the last few decades, or did the standard just change? And all of this leads us to your ultimate responsibility as a clinician. You're not just going to be technicians who follow a recipe. You are scientist practitioners, and that means you have a duty to think critically and to serve the specific community of patients in front of you. So here's your mission, should you choose to accept it. You have to be the ones on the ground collecting the data. You need to understand the community you serve, what they eat, how they live. And maybe, just maybe, you can help establish what is truly a normal, healthy benchmark for your patients, not just some generic number from a textbook written halfway around the world. And that brings us right here to the single most practical, most important piece of advice from this entire discussion. With everything we now know about metabolic health, the very first question you have to ask every single patient that walks in your door before you do anything else is this: are you diabetic? And let me tell you why that is so critical. You can be the most brilliant physical therapist in the world. You can know all the most advanced techniques. But if your patient's cells are metabolically broken, their muscles will not respond the way they should. Their ability to heal is going to be compromised. Knowing their diabetic status is the bedrock that all of your great work is built upon. Without that information, you're just flying blind. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Today, we pulled on the thread of one major medical standard. But as you go out into your careers, what other accepted rules, what other so-called universal truths will you have the curiosity and the courage to question for the good of your patients? Because that is what makes a great clinician.
We're often taught numbers as absolute truths. For example, fasting blood glucose levels are commonly referenced around 100 mg per deciliter, but reference ranges are based on population data. And populations differ in diet, lifestyle, metabolic health, and environmental factors. So, as future clinicians, our responsibility isn't just to memorize values, it is to understand context. What other standards have we accepted without ever asking why? Keep questioning, keep connecting the dots. That's how real clinical thinking begins. If you want more sessions where we break down complex topics and connect them to real clinical practice, subscribe to Study with Anabia. We're building understanding here, not just notes. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for watching. Allah Hafiz.